Hey everybody, welcome to Acrylics Made Easy. Today I want to talk a little bit about using atmospheric perspective to create depth in your paintings. Here we go. On our palette over here we've got golden fluid acrylics, yellow ochre, Hansa yellow, that's vat orange, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue green shade, carbon black, and titanium white. Now, the thing about creating atmospheric perspective is that you're putting atmosphere between things, which basically means you're putting the color of the sky between things. So on our canvas here we've got a blue sky. That means to create atmospheric perspective in our painting, we're going to have to use this blue. Use the blue of the sky to push the mountains in the background further into the distance. Okay, so I'm going to start with basically this same blue that we've got right here in the middle of the sky and start creating some mountains a little bit down into the lighter part here. Okay, so I'm going to use some white and a little bit of that phthalo blue green shade, one of my favorite sky colors. Okay, so that's about the color we've got in the middle of the sky. So I'm going to come over here a little bit below that and start carving out some mountain shapes. Okay, so I want them to be sharp on the top. Maybe make them a little bit more jagged, a little bit more interesting than that. Sharp on the top, and then I'm just going to sort of blend out the bottom. Now, to paint a mountain that looks closer than that, I'm just going to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to get a little bit of that same phthalo blue and white. This time I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine, because as you come closer, you get a little bit more into the red spectrum, and ultramarine blue has a little bit more red in it than this phthalo blue green shade does. So let's use this color here for the next mountain closest to us. So I'll start a little bit below, have it cross over a little bit. It's always nice to have your edges sort of cross over a little bit here and there. And again, just sort of creating a random sort of jagged shape on the top, keeping that top edge sharp. I'm going to blend out the bottom of that. So you can see already these mountains that I first painted are looking like they're further away, because this mountain here, I'm going to go ahead and just cross all the way over it. This mountain here has some darker color, a little bit more into the reddish tint of that blue, so that these ridges that are peeking behind have more of the sky color, so they have more atmosphere in front of them. Now you have a little bit of depth going on. We can go even darker here. So let's go back to our palette here and just get even more ultramarine blue. And we'll go back to our canvas. And once again, just sort of create a mountain shape that has its own unique form, letting a little bit of each of these other ones still poke through. I'm just going to blend out the bottom of that. So now we're moving even more into the reddish spectrum of that blue, meaning this mountain's going to pop out in front of both of the other ridges that we already painted. Okay, and then if we put a mountain in front of all of these, that's just absolutely dark. I'm just going to go with the carbon black for the background of it. It's going to look like there's so much depth going on with all of these different layers of atmosphere. Okay, so let's go over to our palette here drop the brush we've been using in some water, grab a fresh brush. Actually, I'm gonna use that one again. I like the shape of it. Just give this thing a little rinse. Because like I said, we're gonna go into the black paint, and one thing about black paint, you don't need to clean your brush too much before you put the black paint on there, because black paint will cover just about anything. Okay, I really like these mountain ridges, these shapes that I've got right here, so I don't want to cover up too much of them. Just going to come across a little bit. Again, I want this one to have its own kind of unique shape, so try to cross over the other ones a little differently. And I'm just going to fill that in. With a nice dark base. And you can see already, there's a lot of depth between this mountain and the mountain behind it. And then you just get succeeding mountain ridges with more and more depth pushing them back. All right, and then now that we've got our darkest shadows laid out, we can start putting our brightest colors right on top of that, okay? So let's go ahead and just drop this brush in the water now. And then we're gonna grab a different one. Let's grab a filbert. This is a number 6 filbert. And let's start adding some color to that mountain. I wanna get some green going. I'm gonna get some yellow ochre, some of this blue, a little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of phthalo blue. Start with a nice dark green tone like this. And let's just lay in a little bit of texture on these hills that are closer to us. That black paint that I just put on there is still wet, so it is blending in a little bit, but I think that's just fine. We can start out subtle and then build up a little bit more. Now let's go back to our palette. I actually want to get this green just a little brighter, so I'm going to get some of this Hansa yellow in the mix, because we are painting the mountain that's closest to us. So we're going to get some nice bright highlights on this one. And I'm just kind of making it up, you know, putting a couple hills in between the base and that mountain ridge that we already painted up top. Just adding some extra layers of texture there. Let's go back to our palette, wipe that brush a little bit and get a little bit more of that bright green. Again, that's Hansa yellow with a little bit of both of these blues. That's ultramarine blue and the phthalo blue green shade to make this really bright green like this. And just put another couple of hills front. What we just painted. You can see when I'm laying this on there, I really do like to have the brush almost flat against the canvas for some of this texture. I just love the natural feel and the looseness that it creates. You know, I used to paint so kind of uptight with my brush, kind of really tight in my hand and just trying to paint every little treetop so perfectly. And I realized through the years that you actually end up with a better result most of the time by just loosening up. So I like to let my brush kind of bounce around. I'm going to get a little bit of white, just a little bit of that titanium white in here. And we're just going to start finding some of these shapes that we've already made and just adding some little highlights. I do like to sort of twist the brush in my hand as I'm laying it on there and just try to use every edge of the brush. You get a slightly different mark with every different sort of twist and turn of the brush. And one of the hardest things when you're painting landscapes that you'll find is trying to create enough variation. So that's one of the reasons that I like to sort of hold the brush loosely like that, and another reason that I like to sort of twist it in my hand sometimes, because I'll get these marks that I didn't really, I was somewhat controlled with it, but I didn't necessarily intend it to look exactly like it is. And that's when you really get those sort of really natural looking, excuse me, very natural looking sort of shapes that you would never get if you were trying to control it completely. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's put a little bit of really bright color at the bottom, and we'll call this thing done. I'm gonna get some yellow, a little bit of orange. That's a nice bright yellowy green there. Let's put that on. I'm just going to put it across, sort of where I had that dark shadow already laid on this canvas before we started. Just put it across the top of that. And then I'm just going to kind of pull some little plants, some little blades of grass, some little shapes out of there, just to give this edge some texture. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay the brush flat against the canvas again and skip it around towards the bottom. Just really bouncing it and letting it get some random movement in there. Okay, looking pretty good. We might as well use some of this bright color we got on our canvas to throw just a couple of splashes on there of extra brightness right towards the front. So I'm going to get some yellow and orange together. Maybe we'll get some poppies out here in this field. Just a couple of splashes of color. I like the brightness. I'm going to get a little bit more saturated with it, so I'm going to come back here and just grab some orange on its own. And where I have that wet paint already, I've got that yellow and orange and white already on there. Just adding some spots of really intense orange color right on top. And again, this is all about the colors being strong close to you, and then as you get into those further mountains, they just have more of that sky color. One of my art instructors told me that I should imagine sort of a translucent blue sheet hanging down once every, I don't know, you name the distance, once every quarter mile or half a mile or something like that. So that the mountains in front of you, you don't have that sheet in front of you, you have all this dark shadow and bright highlight, and then the next one back, it's just got this blue sheet in front of it, so that you still have shadows and highlights and some shape there, but everything is blue and sort of lighter. And then you get lighter and lighter and lighter as you get into those mountains in the distance. So there you go. That's a quick demo on atmospheric perspective. I hope that you found it helpful. Please like and subscribe to Acrylics Made Easy so we can paint a whole lot more. All right, thanks folks.